Hey everyone, welcome back. Alright, it's finally here. The Prey of Dynar video. Now just to be clear, this augment isn't news to me. I am aware of what's going on and the fact that it was just nerfed, but it's still busted. I've been waiting to see if it gets patched. There are two main build paths for this augment. You either use the Blood Altar gimmick build or use it like a normal melee setup. I'll explain those more in the respective sections. Let's do a very quick refresher on Voruna and how Prey of Dynar works. Voruna is a melee-centric frame that focuses on status effects to scale her DPS. After numerous buffs and augments, her fourth ability scales much better than launch and is now also a solid ability to use for DPS. Voruna builds typically decide between using an actual melee weapon or her 4, and are modded extremely differently. Prey of Dynar works with both, and is thus a universal option for all Voruna builds. No matter the Voruna build, fundamentally, rotations revolve around tagging enemies of interest with their second ability, to prime for condition overload, applying 5 different status effects randomly at 10 stacks each. Subsequent casts on the same enemy do not prioritize missing elements. There's a lot more going on with how her Fangs of Raksh work, as they are possibly the buggiest abilities in the game. If you're interested in what exactly is going on, I've got a video covering that complicated topic at the top right. Killing an enemy you tagged with Fangs of Raksh typically spreads the first 5 status effects inflicted with the ability, no matter if you casted it more times, and in a radius through walls scaling with range. This normally caps out around 20 meters. Prey of Dynar is an augment for her first ability that makes an enemy glow with your chosen energy color nearby when you cast your invis. So choose a nasty bright color that isn't white. This enemy also receives damage vulnerability scaling with strength. Now, if you cast your second ability on this enemy and then kill them, the resulting Fangs of Raksh spread will be much greater. Note that if you don't cast your second ability on the marked enemy, this augment does literally nothing. Imagine it as a much more consistent mecha set, with the caveat that you must cast a specific ability on the marked enemy before killing. Before the fix earlier today, the additional spread scaled with range from the augment as well, with the final value of your enhanced second ability being calculated by this equation. The part in the blue is the original ability, and the part in purple is the additional range granted by the augment. Instead, the purple part is no longer affected by range, it just multiplies your final range by 2.5. While before I didn't recommend modding for 280 range because it messed with the item drops killing 100 meters away, we now need to mod for 265 to get the 46 meters nuke range I originally made this video for. That used to require 190 before the augment fix. This leads us into the main build options. Do we build entirely around the augment and manipulate it as strongly as possible to nuke? Or do we play like normal melee and prioritize the visible target for killing whenever we see it? The second option is much more natural and leads to a steady flow of killing. The first is very unnatural, but what people fail to tell you is how time-consuming it is to set up and what it used to do before nerfs to item drops. So let's take a look at the gimmick option. This was first shown to me over a week ago. The original showcase is linked in the description by jWFlab. Please go check him out and support him for being the original discoverer of the Fangs of Raksh interaction with Melee Affliction, which now is extended with the new augment. He goes into much more detail on the specific interactions with Voruna's original kit. Basically, if you use Blood Altar, you can use the damage spread to nuke entire rooms plus next over. This works because of a way to tax the extra status procs not from Fangs of Raksh itself into the ability spread. Now, this is not the way the ability is supposed to work, it's only supposed to spread statuses and damage originating from the ability. But, well, it's been over a year and remains like this, so I guess it's now a bug turned feature. For a full explanation on this very complicated Fangs of Raksh topic, I also covered the Fangs of Raksh status taxi last year at the top right. But why is Blood Altar used in jWFlab's video? Simply put, Fangs of Raksh long-standing bug has the additional requirement of enemies dying to status effects ticking if you also want to spread status effects of your weapon to actually carry over. The strongest option is Slash, but Slash doesn't tick until 1 second after, meaning the strongest Prey of Dynar builds are killing enemies on raw damage before the status damage can transfer properly. Gas and Electric sort of solved this as I showed in my old video, but there were still issues. Blood Altar makes enemies invincible and stores the full damage of statuses as they tick, allowing you to taxi Slash procs properly. But enter Melee Afflictions. Melee Afflictions is used because it allows you to reproc existing status effects on enemies using the status damage scaling of elements present on your weapon. What this means is you no longer need to match your melee to the elements created by Fangs of Raksh, since Melee Afflictions will automatically recreate all existing status effects for you. This means, since you don't need to equip them on your melee, you have more build freedom and make spreading status effects with damage scaling from your weapon a lot easier. This fixes last year's Fangs of Raksh build, since your melee weapon no longer needs to gamble on matching the statuses of Fangs. You just need Fangs of Raksh to actually apply useful DPS statuses like heat, electric, toxin, gas, etc. I covered Melee Afflictions in a separate video about 4 months ago if you want to go down that rabbit hole. Please do keep in mind that there was one mistake I made, and it reapplies all existing status effects present on the enemy no matter the source, which is the entire crux on why it is so useful here today, and not just those originating from the melee weapon. Note that in endurance content, Blood Altar is no longer required, since enemies will become tanky enough to survive the initial hit, and will die to the resulting ticks afterwards to spread Fangs of Raksh with the weapon damage scaling properly, and thus would open up your helmet options. Okay, now that we understand how this works, I would recommend building to 65 range, because after the fix, this is required to reach 46 meters AoE, and I don't want to use a mod slot on Cunning Drifts. While the damage spread is 99% sourced from your weapon rather than the ability, strength can still be used to make your Shroud of Dynar crit damage buff stronger, as well as improving Prey of Dynar's damage vulnerability debuff. There is a limit on how far enemies away are allowed to drop items. You probably noticed this if you played a 280 range Nezha when Dark Verse plus the Divine Retribution augment was popular before nerfs, nuking out to over 70 meter radius through walls. This actively griefed your farming because it killed enemies so far away that they dropped nothing. For your melees today, I don't think I need to explain what the normal build route without Afflictions and Blood Altar would use. You can use any melee you like, because Shroud of Dynar's base ability already grants bonus crit damage, force proc slash, and up to plus 100% flat crit chance and status chance. Instead, we'll look at what happens if you want to go the Blood Altar Melee Afflictions route. Due to a recent hotfix, you can no longer use Melee Afflictions to proc against Overguarded Eximus based off of crowd control state requirements like Knockdown, Ragdoll, Lifted, etc., which is the cornerstone of activating Melee Afflictions. This has the side effect of making Melee Afflictions no longer work on Blood Altar when activated via Ragdoll. However, Knockdown Melee still work for today's strat. The first example that came to mind is just they hate Incarnon because it's basically Harmony without the gimmick, being a one-handed scythe with force proc slash and knockdown on heavy. But there are many other options, such as Okina's new Incarnon, which is also knockdown heavy slash. For Knockdown Melee, please again refer to my original Melee Afflictions video at the top right. This is my template hate build I'm using. Because it force knockdowns on heavy, it is guaranteed to proc Afflictions, which will reapply existing statuses from Fangs of Raksh on the enemy. I could experiment by modding gas and electric on 2 for proper status taxi as well as status duration. However, I did not do that because I wanted a weapon that could also kill enemies without needing the taxi strat with Blood Altar and Fangs of Raksh. While I don't hit damage cap this way by building the way I did, I still easily deal into tens to hundreds of millions on almost every single time with the strat. And by building this way, even if I don't use the strat, Acolytes still die much faster by directly attacking them, easily critting and dealing obscene amounts of damage. Note that Blood Altar kills are not considered melee kills from the Fangs of Raksh nuke, but the original enemy you hit will be considered a melee kill. This is important for upkeeping Galvanized Reflex for 5x combo. Dispatch Overdrive is flex with Prime Reach depending if you want more movement speed or more range to easily hit the Blood Altar or proc Galvanized Reflex on normal kills. Companion weapons can be whatever you want today. For me, I ran Tazicor for status priming to guarantee the main target will at least have Viral and Electric for better damage on Melee Afflictions. However, do note that if your Fangs of Raksh didn't proc Viral or Electric, then Viral or Electric will not spread. For the actual companion, do not bring Nautilus with Cordon if you're using the Prey of Dynar augment. Your status spread is already greater than Cordon itself can pull, which is only 30 meters. And Cordon just makes it harder for you to Fangs of Raksh the correct glowing enemy when it bunches enemy up and moves them around. That's all. Cheers. If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I try my best to get new information out always as soon as possible, like I've done with the Koumei update. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. Don't miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching and see you all next time.